statement, and then we'll take questions.
We normally play a better second half than what you saw today. I think that talking to our team today, they definitely deserve better. And that's not just for myself. Obviously, starting with myself and from our staff. Not score. I don't think the score is indicative to what our football team looks like or what they're about. Being down 14-6 at the half, extremely excited to start the second half with the football. Get a great kickoff return, and decided to go for it on fourth down. Understanding kind of the offense that we were going against and trying to just extend a possession. So, I think that we as a staff, we're not going home tonight. We're gonna sit down and rethink how we need to handle this football team. I think we're a lot better than what we're showing, and there may be some schematic issues that we need to fix. And if we're gonna get it fixed, we need to do it immediately. That's where we're at today. Hopefully we can. We have no choice but to put a better product on the field. That is we're a much better football team than we showed today, and maybe what we've shown throughout the season. So, looking forward to questions.
Coach, before coming into this week, you had everything kind of in front of you, and now really early got a game behind, losing this game. How do you keep the locker room upbeat and keeping them, just continue looking forward to the season as y'all try to just improve?
I think that normally when you get, especially with us, right? Losing to Jackson State, losing or winning to Jackson State kind of dictated how your season was going to go, and you look at the conference, and you got some upsets already brewing right now. So it still looks like you have an opportunity, but that's going to be our senior group, our staff. We gotta make sure our guys are believing in us. Because if it's not going to really matter. I just think that for us, we got to get ourselves playing better, and that might be what we're doing, and who's playing and what we're doing, and I'm never going to blame it on the kids. So I'm going to look at myself and look at what we need to do staff-wise to make sure we're playing better. There's too many good players in our locker room for us to give up 299 yards rushing and then score 14 points this afternoon.
Coach, thinking in this situation, are you concerned at all about just some panic in terms of your players, your personnel at this point?
No, I think we're still early in the year. Obviously it's the first game of conference play. Nobody's been eliminated or anything like that. That's when I think the panic kind of sets in. But we know we got to play better. Where every game that we play here on out, it's gonna be that's a good football team. Don't get me wrong, that team that we just played is pretty damn good. Probably got the MVP of the conference on their football team, but I just don't think that we played as well as we needed to. Like I said, we play. Normally we play much better in the second half than what we showed today. So we're not gonna panic, but we do need to play better. That's a fact. If that's panic, then I guess it's panic. But for me, I just think we need to play better, and that might be what we're doing needs to be better.
Coach Steve Campbell, HBC Coach is going. Hey, good to see you, Coach. Question: looking at the play calling, RJ averaged only 4 yards in completion. Was it you were trying to get the ball out of his hands quick and let your playmakers make plays after the catch, or was it because Alabama State defense was willing to give him the long ball?
I think we had some opportunities. I haven't necessarily got a chance to look at the film per se. But I think when we went in, we thought we had some opportunities to go down the field, and why we didn't, I won't know yet. But I do think we, in my opinion, thought we had an advantage with our receivers against their corners, and get a chance to look at the film and see why we did not. I just thought, Alabama State, I feel, and again, just watching the game, they did a much better job getting the ball to their players than FAMU did to get the ball to our players.
Keith Adler, Fangs podcast. Question, Coach, kind of following up there. During the game at all, did you kind of consider maybe switching quarterbacks, or you just a little more comfortable with where RJ was at the time?
That wasn't, to me, that wasn't at that time when we talked about it. Coach Burris and I, trust me, Coach Burris and I, we talked almost, after every series or just kind of in between series, and we didn't think that was really an issue. We just thought we had some chances where we could have made some plays, did it. I just, to me, there's some guys that we have to get the football to. And if you look at our sheet, I think we threw to double-digit people. We threw to more than 8 or 9 receivers as far as getting the ball to them. But we got to be able to stretch the field. We got to be able to move some guys out. I like when the Wiltshire and Cody Lawrence and Burris and Speedy Rogers are one-on-one. I didn't see very much of that today, which when I talk about what we're doing, maybe need to change. So we'll get a chance to again. I hate to speak on it, prematurely without looking at every single thing that we need to do, but. These balls need to start flying around the damn football field. You know what I mean? And all that other stuff that kind of looks good, but we're way too talented at the wide receiver position to not have at least one or two opportunities throwing the ball down the field. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think we have one. And that's we're going to be successful. Long drives, 10-play, 11-play drives. That don't give you a whole lot of success, especially in this conference. So you got guys that can get the ball down the field and catch the ball down the field. Those are things that we have to do. To be successful, especially to be a successful offense, I don't think we showed that tonight. And when you get guys with 4 catches for 30 yards and 2 catches for 10 yards, when you do the averages, that means we didn't throw the ball down the field enough.
Coach, I think it ended up being 1 of 5 on 4th down. When you're going for it, 4th down, middle of the field, just if 1 or 2 of those is different, just how much? I guess, sorry, let that question get away from me. Just how difficult is it when you sometimes get behind in those situations and you can't convert?
Well, we thought we were gonna have to do that anyway, right? Just because they were very, very explosive offense. We didn't necessarily want to give it back. At that time, we thought we had to. I beg to differ on the spot that we got on the first one. You know what I mean? I don't think the referee was where he needed to be to make that call, but I think on the other 2 we were short. So now schematically, right? Like hey, 4th and 3, we can't have catches at the 2, so that's execution. That's calls, things of that nature. So, but if I had to do it over again, I'd still do it. I think at that stage in the game, and kind of how they were going offensively, we knew it was going to be somewhat of a high-scoring football game. But I just thought that at that time they were needed times to go for it, and then you go for the first, second time. Now you're down 28-6, and you kind of have to still kind of go for it because you're still trying to put points on the board. So. We went one. I think we went 1 of 4 or 1 of 5, and then you give the ball to an explosive offense right in the middle of the field, and Alabama State does what they've done all season, and that's put points on the board.
Short White, FAMU Sports.
Yeah.
Real quick, you had some things going. You were able to pretty much blood in their nose and drive down the field. There were some miscues, personal foul issues with the players. Is that something you're going to need to take a look at going forward, because those can kind of cost you?
We had the one we had on Charles Davis. To me, that was a plain penalty. Those aren't necessarily ones I'm going to say is undisciplined. He's blocking the end, and his hand got up there, right? To me, that's not necessarily a discipline penalty. I just think that's a plain penalty. Then we had the one with Cody Lawrence. I think that was on the sidelines. The way it looked to me on the sidelines, somebody did a great acting job, and then got the penalty. So I don't think, for me, don't get me wrong. We've had some discipline penalties. I just don't think the 2 that they called right there were because of that. I think we were 7 of 75, and 2 of those penalties, again, big penalties. Obviously because of when they happened. But I don't get mad at the plain ones. I get mad at the dumb ones. You know what I mean? And I don't necessarily think those were dumb ones. I think they were plain ones, in my opinion. But if I get a chance to really look at it, but I just think they were plain ones, plain penalties.
Coach, looking at, you just said a few minutes ago you were evaluating the game. What is your evaluation of your quarterback play tonight overall, or what you're looking at right now?
But from what I saw at the game, he was 20 of 33 for 133 yards. I've watched too much FAMU football to know that we throw for 300. We get touchdowns. We're going to go 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and we're going to throw for 340-something yards. That's not indicative to what I think this offense should be throwing the football.
Does that mean that you're going to have a quarterback change?
No, our quarterbacks are going to throw. If he's 20 for 33, the completion percentage is technically where you almost want it to be. But I got to know why we were going short as much as we were. I know late in the game, when we're down 2 or 3 touchdowns, Alabama State's playing the zone. So all his throws at that time now have to be short yardage. But how we got to that point, right? I watch too much of this football. Not even as a coach, but just we got to get the ball down the damn field, man. We got to get the ball down the field. You got to soften this. You got to soften some of these coverages up a little bit, and that's what I saw, right? I just know that I don't think we threw the ball deep enough and took advantage of our receiving core like I would hope we would. When we, you know, I've watched Alabama State for 4 years, and I've seen what their defenses look like, and you know, not to say anything else about these guys this year, but if you look at how those guys were in the last 2 or 3 years, they didn't have very many weaknesses. This year we felt they had some, and I thought we would take advantage of it today, and we did.
Coach, this gives you an opportunity to get a game under your belt in conference, but next weekend you'll get Valley. Just talk about moving forward and banding together and doing whatever you got to do to be successful.
Well, I mean, you know, you gotta. I don't want our guys to sulk. You know, as a coaching staff, we got to get ourselves back together. You know, I know they're winning right now, if it looks like, and you know, they're going to come in ready to play. Which, you know, again, if you look at the conference play, you know, you're looking at Bethune beating Alabama A&M, right? You know, you look at how many points Alabama State scored today. You know, you got some of the other offenses that are in this conference are scoring points. You know, every year, you know, it could be a defensive conference or it could be an offensive conference, right? Right now, it looks like the offenses that are scoring points are going to be the teams that are going to have success. So, you know, I would put our playmakers up there against a lot of the teams that we're playing. We're just not. I don't think we're getting it to them. And then, you know, defensively, we got to get our asses off the field. This is probably one of the worst third down defenses we have today. You know, and we had a lot of opportunities. You know, when I talked to our team today, we talked about on offense, third and short. Defense, we talked about third and long. Those were going to be the two things I felt that was going to, you know, whether it was going to put us in the right position or try to kind of tell us how the game went. You know, and I think that on third down and long, I mean, they were able to get themselves extra possessions, and you know, we had third and short and fourth and short. And then we, on a lot of those opportunities, we ended up coming off the field. So, you know, I don't want to say that was the difference, but you know, when you start looking at about 7 or 8 plays in this football game, half of them are going to be on what happened on fourth down when you give an explosive offense a short field. So, you know, I just, you know, you're looking at how this conference is rolling, and the teams that are going to win right now are the ones that are scoring points, not the ones that are scoring 14.
Coach, when you take a step back and look at your team from the coaching standpoint to the team standpoint on the field, what is something that really stands out to you as we need to get better at this?
I collectively, you know, if it's you know, if you told me it was 14-6 today and we were going to be down 14-6 and we were going to have the ball to start the third quarter, I would have taken that right then. You know, I mean, obviously the way the game started, you know, they got a little hot. We were able to stop them a little bit and going into the half with a bunch of momentum after the long drive that we had, and we went in there and talked about whatever adjustment that we needed to make. And again, I thought everything that we did, we talked about was going to work, was going to go well, right? And you know, we don't ever we may start poorly, but we normally finish with the best of them. So a little bit disappointed with that. But overall, you know, I just feel that we got to do a little better job with the personnel that we have. You know, I think, you know, after you get to week 4, you know, you kind of see what your team is and what you're looking like and what you need to do to be successful. And you know, and I just think that right now, you know, defensively, alignment and making sure we get the right people on the field that are going to do exactly what they do and line up correctly, communicate correctly, regardless of how well they can run and how well they look. You got to be able to line up and play, you know, and that's something that we didn't do today on the defensive side and offensively. Like I said, I mean, I just think we got to handle our personnel a little bit better. And you know, yeah, you know, we've had some guys banked up. Yeah, we've had some guys in and out. You know, and it's week 4. You know, we're 1-3. You know, we're gonna turn this thing around. My ass ain't gonna be here.
Keith, 2 more questions. Yes, sir. Last question for me, Keith Adley. You were mentioning the third down defense and kind of what you saw there. Could you just kind of, for those of us that are maybe not as astute, could you explain some of the reasons or some of the things that you are seeing that are working against us on third down?
Well, I mean, we had a great call on him a couple times where we were going to spy the quarterback and, you know, made the mistake that he got the guy who was spying got tied up on a route, you know, and you know, in all honesty, the route didn't matter, right? We were spying on the cue, right? That was a huge third down and 9 play. It was on a play where he scrambled. I mean, we had a guy on him, right? We had literally a guy that was supposed to spy on him. He got caught in the route, so then he went and played the route, and then Bodie went for 10 to 12 yards. So that's just, you know, that's a major mistake because it's 3rd and 8. If he's spying him like he's supposed to, we tackle him, and it's 4th and 5, right? So, you know, that's just a huge mistake that allows us to get off the field. You know, schematically, we knew what he was going to do. If the guy's not open, he's going to run the ball. Like, so that was a call we made, and then the execution was great by all 10 people, right? Minus the guy who was supposed to spy, right? So, you know, those are just, You know, did we call it? Did we not? Did we run it enough? Did we communicate enough what exactly spy means? So who's, you know, again, not gonna blame the kid. I'm never gonna blame the kid. So collectively as a staff, we talked about how we wanted to do it. Did we talk about what we wanted from it? But did we coach it? Did we coach it throughout the week? So, you know, I don't think our guys go out there and make mistakes on purpose. That's not what I think they do. So, you know, we got to do a much better job as a staff coaching it up, or find somebody out there and put somebody out there that we know 100% is going to do what needs to be done on every down distance.
Coach, you're now 8-8.
Yeah.
8 for 16 games.
Yeah, man.
And now you're starting to see teams that, when you go forward, most of the teams that we have a winning streak against,
Yep.
other than Jack State, looking at your schedule.
Yep.
How are you going to get the team focused back to get that FAMU mystique back and understand that, to this point, that you still can win the conference even with this one loss?
Well, I think the guys know it, right? I think, you know, that was something that we talked about. You know, we got into the locker room, you know, obviously very, very somber locker room at that point, but then, you know, we got a chance to just talk as a team, you know, and that what the expectations are. You know, we know now, hey, you know, we're 0-1, but that doesn't mean we're in. It doesn't mean we're out of everything. And there wasn't a conversation about being done with the season. You know, again, we're almost getting ready to start the middle of the season. I think that for us, we're gonna have to not necessarily regroup, but as a staff, we gotta continue to get on the same page about what we need to do with this football team. Because right now, you know, I don't know if our football team right now, is as united as we need them to be, and that's, you know, that's what it is. When you're 1-3 and you're having won games, yeah, there's gonna be a little bit of, you know, there may be a loss of confidence in there right now. As a staff, including myself, we gotta make sure we get that confidence back. Because again, there's some good players in there, and I think, you know, the Thad Franklins and you look at Ashton Grable, those guys I thought fought hard. You know, on the sidelines, we're seeing a bunch of the right things, but we gotta get some W's, right? That's what that's gonna boil down to. That's what helps with confidence. That's what helps the team getting where they need to be, winning football games, putting the ball in the paint, having confidence, being ahead, winning the game at the end, right? You know, those are the things that we talk about. But, you know, now we got to make sure we do it. I mean, I don't think it's going to take much for us to get motivated for who we play next week. You know, I think the guys understand what's at stake there because obviously of what happened with us last year. But we also have to understand we got to play. We got to play well because they're going to play well.
St. Clair, last question.
I yield.
You're good?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
Thanks, I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Coach.